All right, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, and of course, social media world. Welcome to episode 97 of Go Tell to the Wall podcast. I am, of course, your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. We've got an awesome show for you tonight. I'm a little bit fired up because the Boston Bruins clinched their trip to the to the Stanley Cup Finals. So it's going to be an interesting show, I can tell you that. I've got some tasty beer, some great topics to get into, and also a couple of announcements. So, stick around. Let's get into it. All right, wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers. Welcome to episode 97 of Go Tell to the Wall podcast. I am, of course, your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And I've got an awesome show for you tonight. I'm going to warn everybody. Boston Bruins, just this evening, clinched their trip to the Stanley Cup Finals. So I am a little fired up. I'm wearing my Boston Bruins shirt tonight, as a matter of fact. And of course, our very own on-air producer, Chris Hassong, has just joined the live feed. And I'm sure, Chris, you've got to be very excited as well. I was definitely teaching Zoe how to cheer. We want the cup. We want the cup. She was doing pretty good at it. So it's gonna be an interesting week and a half here. After everyone, see, Chris is very excited. I know. I was saying to my 2-year-old. I went a long time as a child without seeing my beloved Bruins, Red Sox, Patriots. Patriots not as long, but definitely the Bruins and the Red Sox. Long time without seeing them win a championship. My daughter is 2.5, and she's already gotten 2 Super Bowls for the Patriots and a World Series from the Red Sox, and now the Boston Bruins are going to the Stanley Cup Finals. So I'm a little bit jealous, I guess, but it's okay. She's just gonna know the Boston teams as winning teams from her childhood, as opposed to my personal experience in the 80s and 90s where they were not really winning teams. So that's okay. I'm not bitter about it. I'm not. I know Chris is probably going to start feeling the same way about his kids because he's got 2 girls at home who really didn't have to suffer. Although, granted, they are quite young. Didn't have to suffer through the ridiculousness of losing over and over and over again. So that's all good stuff. All right, we're going to kick things off with social plugs. That's right, social plugs. You can keep up with us during shows, after shows, before shows, between shows, whenever you so please, and you can do that. That's right, Chris, 87 years. The Red Sox was by far the biggest one for me in 2004. The Bruins in 11. It's so tough between those two. Patriots are kind of secondary on those. But again, you can keep up with us before shows, during shows, after shows, between shows, whenever you want. You can do so in multiple locations. One of those would be on Twitter. Follow our official Go Tell to the Wall podcast, Go Tell to the Wall Media Empire. I like using that term. Twitter account, and that is at Tell the Wall Pod. That's right, it's actually on the wall right behind me. For those of you that are watching on the live feed, it is reversed because Facebook is dumb, but it is on the wall right there, at Tell the Wall Pod. Also, make sure you follow my own personal Twitter account, which is at Magic Muppet. That's right, at Magic Muppet. Follow that one as well. You're going to get all kinds of great nuggets of common sense, interesting things throughout the week. Sometimes nothing, but I guarantee you're going to get just as good a stuff as you're getting from at least half of the people you're following on that platform. So follow us on Twitter again, at Magic Muppet and at Tell the Wall Pod. Of course, on Facebook, we are currently live on Facebook right now, facebook.com/Go Tell to the Wall. Make sure you head on over there, like our page, check back often for updates, all that good stuff. New episodes get posted up there, and as I said, we are currently live. For those of you that don't go on to Facebook and engage with us, but you want to, you can do that. That would be the best place to do it, is facebook.com/Go Tell to the Wall. Additionally, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's just, you can tell the Bruins just won, and now I'm like, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Head on over to YouTube, search Go Tell to the Wall, subscribe, check out our videos. That's where you're going to find all of our live feeds, and our teaser videos get posted on there, as well as all of our beer reviews. We have a parenting playlist on there. There's a bunch of good stuff on there, so make sure you are subscribed. Click the notification thing so you get notified whenever we post new stuff. If you're not even if you're not interested in the live feeds, there's plenty of other good stuff up there. And if you don't like kind of going through the entire live feeds. There are individual clips on there, kind of stuff that we think is more important and I don't know, funny, I guess. It just depends on what the topic is. Some stuff's funny, some stuff's serious. So it just depends on the topic. So make sure you are subscribed to Go Tell It to the Wall on YouTube. And most importantly, and all-encompassing of those things I just mentioned would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Head on over there, bookmark it. Make sure you check back often. You're going to find not only links to all of those platforms I just mentioned, but you're going to find stuff that you will not find on any other platform, including blog posts, photos that you're not going to find anywhere else, all kinds of good stuff. So make sure you bookmark, check back often. In addition to those things, you're going to find a link to our Patreon page. That's right, our Patreon page. And if you have the means and you feel so inclined, please help us out financially. Every dollar helps. Every little bit helps to keep this studio running, helps to bring in new stuff, people to the podcast, all that good stuff. So make sure, if you are so inclined, that you support us on Patreon. And you know what, just for fun, because I don't use it that much, but for some reason, my Instagram account has just been like, that's where we're getting a lot of the hits and stuff. So if you're an Instagram user, which I know a lot of people are, because I actually have friends that don't use Twitter, don't use Facebook, they just use Instagram. So if you're interested in following us on Instagram, you can do so by following my own account, which is SoCalSean. That's right, SoCalSean. SoCalSean. Easy to remember, easy to follow. So if you want to, you can actually follow us on Instagram. I don't use it as much. I do, but I don't. And for some reason, everyone likes to follow on the Instagram. I think that's what the kids are doing these days, and that's why we keep getting like hits on Instagram and all that stuff. So it's out there if you want. SoCalSean. Quick warning for everybody. Warning, just a heads up. There likely will not be a full episode next week. I'm going to get into why that's a possibility when we get into parenting. But most likely no full episode next week. There's going to be all kinds of fun stuff coming your way. But it's going to be tough to get in the studio for a full episode. I'll explain a little bit more of that as we get into parenting. And if you can't tell, we're going to have maybe some other content, usual content, but more leaning toward that content, and I'll explain a little bit more of that once we get to that point in the show. And of course, beer this week. Oh, I love me some Sierra Nevada. Sierra Nevada is definitely one of my go-to breweries, especially because they're family owned. It's still a craft brewery, even though they have such large distribution. And this one is tasty. It is their Sidecar Orange IPA. Sidecar, that's right, like a sidecar. You order a shot with a margarita or whatever. It's their Sidecar Orange IPA. Chris, I'm actually interested for you to try this one. I know you don't like the IPAs. I gave it to my wife earlier, and she does not like the IPAs, but the orange really cancels it out. And it's not that overwhelming orange, because there's a lot of the fruity IPAs that I'm not a big fan of. This one, it's just a very subtle citrus hint to it. It's not overpowering, but I think for people that don't really like IPAs, the bitterness, the hoppiness of IPAs, it definitely cancels out kind of that part of the IPA. And I believe, I'm not seeing it right here, I believe this one was sitting at 6.5. It's right around that typical IPA, and I did not write it down. 6.8, yeah, right around that typical IPA alcohol content, so 6.8. It's pretty good. Yeah, Chris, I think you would like this one, despite not really liking IPAs, but the orange kind of cancels it out a bit, so this should be a good one for you. Check them out. I'll try to save one for you, but as we all know, that's not gonna happen. I'm gonna be celebrating tonight as well because of the Bruins. Hey, Jen. And hey, Corey, I see you joining over there. So check them out. Sierra Nevada Sidecar Orange IPA. Gotta love those California beers. All right, let's get into some social trends. Ooh, social trends. Don't forget, because I mentioned it last week, but May is Mental Health Awareness Month, so we are going to be focusing on a lot of that, as I mentioned last week, over the next few episodes, although unfortunately, like I said, we're probably missing next week's episode. I always say we're not missing an episode, it's just being pushed. We're not going to have a full episode next week. So before I get into all the other social trends going on right now, keep in mind that's going on, so if you want to share that hashtag Mental Health Awareness Month, that is definitely a good one to be sharing. Anytime, mental health stuff anytime, but especially this month with it being Mental Health Awareness Month. All right, some social trends going on right now. One in particular is I believe this is really only going around like Southern California, Los Angeles area, and I always make fun of this one. Like, not brutally, but I'm always like, come on guys, calm down. However, I was doing some reading, and that's hashtag LA Rain. everyone freaks out when it starts raining in Los Angeles. And if you've listened to the podcast or you live in Southern California, you know people in Southern California, you know we had quite the rainy season this past year. And apparently what's happening now, and it's funny, my wife woke me up early this morning, and she's like elbowing me, she's like, it's raining, and I rolled over, I was like, yeah, it's raining, and she's like, well, and I think she just wasn't prepared, and is there anything out, and it's like, no, we're fine here, but sure enough, it rained quite a bit, and I was reading today, and that's why I'm actually including this hashtag LA rain, because the rain's a-coming, it is a-coming, there's something called these, atmospheric rivers. I'm not even kidding. I may not have that exactly correct, but it is close enough for you to understand. Atmospheric rivers are basically happening over Southern California right now, and we are getting ridiculous amounts of rain over the next few days to a week, 5 to 7 days, to the point where it's going to be about 2 months worth of rain for Southern California that we're getting over the next 5 to 7 days. Yeah, so it's going to be ridiculous. So I do want to give a little shout out to hashtag LA rain. Don't be sharing it just because you got some drizzles on your car here in Southern California. But if a river starts dumping on you, then yeah, maybe share some hashtag LA rain. All right, some funny ones that I've been following a little bit. Hashtag write a poem to your ex. That's right, hashtag write a poem to your ex. I have nothing to contribute to this individually, but I will share this one with you from @Sunkissed1. Jeez, people and their Twitter names. @Sunkissed1. And I quote, "Roses are red, you're obviously not dead, I don't want you back, go sit on a tack." There's also another one here that is Hickory Dickory Dock, and you can figure out the next line that one's coming from. I'm not even going to try to read that Twitter name. I'm so sick of trying to read these Twitter names, and it's like, I don't even understand what you're saying. Granted, mine is weird, Magic Muppet, but it's not hard. Magic Muppet. It should be Magical Muppet. Somebody already had Magical Muppet when I joined Twitter a year ago. I was late to that game. So it's Magic Muppet, and deal with it. But at least you can read it, At least you can read it. All right, another one going around right now. Hashtag I refuse to apologize for. Hashtag I refuse to apologize for. This one I actually really enjoyed from Megan Nugent. See, that one's not too hard to read, people. Hashtag I refuse to apologize for being myself, and that will never change. And I also refuse to apologize for telling the truth, which is fantastic. Yes, it was rehashing the old Andrew Dice Clay bit, Matt. You caught on to that one. I thought it was very funny. I just didn't want to present that particular one out to the wall fans and common sensors. And I will tell you personally, hashtag I refuse to apologize for common sense. I do. I refuse to apologize for conveying common sense. A lot of people like to argue with me on things, and I will admit that a lot of things are opinion based, but when it really comes down to that common sense, I'm not apologizing for any of that. I'm just not going to apologize. All right, another one floating around the social platforms right now. Hashtag odd things to say at a funeral. Hashtag odd things to say at a funeral. This one I really liked from @JellyStilettos. And please take this one with a grain of salt. I don't think funerals are a laughing matter by any means. It's a means to convey a comedic, tone, I guess. And again, this one from Jelly Stilettos. Wow, I just realized what that is. Like the old jellies. I wish they would make jelly stilettos. Do you remember the old jelly shoes? Like if you're old enough to remember them. And I think they got I believe they were making a little comeback there for a while, and people probably realized they were funky plastic shoes and not the most comfortable thing to wear. But she actually shared this hashtag odd things to say at a funeral. And I quote, "That bitch over there is wearing black too." That's right, because like weddings, yeah, why am I explaining jokes here? And I will say, I don't have a particular funny one to share right now, but I will say, and I don't know if this is still her plan, but I have an aunt who years and years and years ago, back in the 90s, actually had told, she told a bunch of people, but I happened to be sitting around when she was talking about it, that she actually wanted a phone in her coffin. Jen, if you're still on, this would be Aunt Sue, which you could probably figure out. So my Aunt Sue, actually, hey Ryan, thank you for joining, and Matt, I didn't see you pop up, I'm just getting your things. Wanted a phone in her coffin so that during the funeral, it started ringing. And of course that would just be, I don't know how hilarious that would be, but it would be kind of funky. And there was actually, I think that's how it came up, there was a Robin Williams movie in the 90s called Toys. And one of the characters died and had like a laughing thing in their coffin, which was again not a laughing matter, but you got to make as much light of things as you can. No, I want to see. Okay, what do you, and we, oh. Oh no. Oh, that's terrible. So my good friend Matt, who was on the live feed here, apologies for that quick delay. I had to read what he was saying. One of the employees at his flower shop had a balloon order for a funeral and actually accidentally put in a get well soon balloon. Yeah, that's not appropriate for funerals. That had to be quite the phone call for you to get, Matt. I apologize that you had to deal with that. But those things happen. I guess those things happen. I don't know. That's a bit much. Another one floating around right now. Hashtag in my high school yearbook. Hashtag in my high school yearbook. Coincidentally, I have people that I went to high school with here that on the live feed, so they might have some funny stuff to interject as well. And again, this one's more. I like this one from Sea Monkey's Rule. Oh, I like that. At Sea Monkey's Rule. Hashtag in my high school yearbook. Many black X's over the faces of people I hated. I think I've done that as well. But I will share this one with you. And this is people sharing like funky stuff from the yearbook. And I almost busted out my yearbooks. I've still got all four of my high school yearbooks. They're actually sitting like right behind me here. I've got two of my wife's yearbooks and all four of my yearbooks sitting on a shelf. I started thinking about busting them out and everything else. And then I was actually reminded, and I believe I still have that yearbook, one of my middle school yearbooks. I went to Catholic school. If you've listened to the podcast, you know I went to Catholic school my entire educational career until college. And one of those came out with, one of the years we had it in middle school. The yearbook cover was just American flags, like a montage of American flags. And all you Wall fans and common sensors, you know the one and only Sean O'Rourke was a bit of a punk rocker, especially back then. And I didn't approve of an American flag. And please, nobody send me like hate. I already get enough of like the hate mail when I was saying it's fine for an athlete to kneel. So calm down. We're talking like 12-year-old Sean here. So of course I promptly took that home and put Anarchy A's all over it because I thought that was more appropriate. And that's what I did with my middle school yearbook. I believe it was like 6th grade. Might have even been 5th grade. Is that elementary school technically? I don't know. It's been a long time, Wall fans. It's been a long, long time since I was in any kind of schooling at all, let alone elementary, middle school. So, yeah. All right, another one. This one's almost a little scary for me. This one, like, because it's a little too true. Hashtag unusual craft beers. Hashtag unusual craft beers. And for example, the reason I say that this is a little scary because it's too real. Upside Down Michael at Lost My Sandal. Oh, I wonder if that's the dude from the festival that, yeah, never mind. An old viral video that it's just making me feel old because kids probably don't watch those kind of videos anymore. But he shared this taco flavored beer. Taco flavored beer. And you might laugh and you might say, oh, okay, yeah, oh, okay, taco flavored beer, that's funny. Really, it's just a matter of time. These craft breweries get so ridiculous with the beer flavoring, it's just a matter of time till we have a taco-flavored beer. And I love tacos. I mean, I grew up in San Diego. With taco shops. That's what we did. I don't want a taco-flavored beer. I don't want it. Like this orange in this little bit of orange in this beer, that's enough for me. That's all I'll do. All right, a couple more of these. I know, we're just heavy on the social trends this week. One more. Well, a couple more, but this really one more funny one. Hashtag why I'm unhappy in 5 words. Hashtag why I'm unhappy in 5 words. Now, people were sharing the heck out of this one, and of course, this one took a very political and common sense term, so I will just go ahead and share mine with you. Hashtag why I'm unhappy in 5 words. Orange menace in White House. That's why I'm unhappy in 5 words. There's a lot of other things I'm unhappy about, to be totally honest with you, but that's the first one that came to mind, especially just kind of going with the theme of what everyone's doing on here. So, and these last two, I don't even want to talk really about them or kind of get into it. I just encourage you to follow these yourself if you're interested, because I don't want to go on a complete rant over what's happening in Georgia and Alabama right now. But I encourage you to educate yourselves. Anyone out there that is not up to par on this subject and what's going on right now in Georgia and Alabama. And really, you can use 2 of these hashtags to do it. One of them would be hashtag women's reproductive rights, which is going to be a lot more of just informational stuff. But the other one, which I think can be a little more emotional, so kind of prepare yourself, is hashtag you know me. Hashtag you know me. And this is women actually sharing their stories and their experiences with abortion. And I will tell you, Busy Phillips was actually one of the people to start this trend. If you're not familiar with Busy Phillips, she is an actress. She's been in a ton of stuff. And she was in one of the greatest television shows of all time. I will fight anybody on that. Freaks and Geeks. She was fantastic in that show. So follow those. I'm not going to get into them. I think these are things that people need to be educated about, and it's not my place to really. As much as we do talk about common sense, hashtag common sense, there's nothing more that I'm going to do. I'm not going to convince anyone otherwise. And I'm not educated, that is really passionate. I'm not going to convince them otherwise. People from Alabama that are in support of these kind of things. And for those of you that are kind of on the fence, or just, I'm not educated enough to give that information. So that's why I just want to make sure people are aware of that and able to kind of really formulate their own opinion, I guess, but just have an understanding of why women's reproductive rights are important, because they are. There's no question about that. That's straight common sense. Women's reproductive rights are important, and you're not going to be able to convince me otherwise when it comes to anything along those lines. Sorry, I'm making a note here. All right, let's get into some TV, film, and books. Chris, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one. We've known about it for a while, but their reputation has taken a bit of a hit. The next Star Wars film, we kind of got an official announcement from Bob Iger, good old Bob over there. Just hoarding money like Smaug, the dragon in The Hobbit. I know, it's ridiculous. The next Star Wars film, not the one that is going to come out. The one that, I believe they're probably in post-production. Chris is going to know that right off the top of his head. I believe they're in post-production on that one. Not the completion of the current trilogy that's coming out, but the next movie after that is going to release in 2022. 3 years from now. I believe I talked about that before. This one, it's now being confirmed that this one is the one that is written and produced by Benioff and Weiss. Benioff and Weiss. They are the showrunners and the writers of Game of Thrones. They write and produce it. Thank you, Chris. The most recent one is in post. I thought it was, but Chris is much more knowledgeable on those things than myself. And this is, obviously, I think Disney does need a little bit of a gap here with Star Wars movies. They've saturated the market just with everything. It's ridiculous at this point. And personally, I'm not worried about it, but Benioff and Weiss have taken quite the hit. Their reputation has taken quite the hit over the past couple weeks, and especially regarding the most recent episode of Game of Thrones, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes here. But without spoilers, so don't worry about that. I'm maybe vague spoilers, but for those of you that have seen it, but I'm going to avoid the spoilers as much as possible. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what a long time ago in a Westeros far, far away. Oh, that's right. Oh. Star Wars has dragons for the first time ever. Who knows? I don't know. I'm very cynical, but when it comes to these kind of things, I'm like, I had no problems with the Last Jedi, and I'm fine. Just entertain me. Just entertain me. That's all I want. All these big blockbuster action movies and stuff, just entertain me. It's rare that I'm disappointed by a big budget action film like that, like a Star Wars film. Really, the only Marvel film I've seen where I was truly disappointed and a little bit upset was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And I was like, what the fuck did I just watch? I had no interest in that whatsoever. So we'll give him a chance. But we've got confirmation on that from Bob Iger, from the man himself. Yeah, no, I'm with you. Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, Matt. It is very much a wah, Some more news from Disney. I mentioned top of the show, or I think in the teaser, that we have a lot of Disney stuff this week for some reason. They're just what's in the news. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. You guys remember that movie? Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, starring Rick Moranis. Yeah, it was a decent film. I mean, family Disney film. We've gotten some confirmation that there is a reboot in development at Disney called Shrunk. There's a couple cool things about this. I won't say that I'm super excited about this, but I'll probably eventually end up watching, especially having a kid at home. It'll be a bit of a family movie. So it's in development. It's called Shrunk. They've already signed Josh Gad to play the main character. I am a big Josh Gad fan, so already I'm like, okay, I'm listening. But in addition to that, we do have a little bit more information. It's a reboot, but it is kind of a sequel as well. So Josh Gad is going to play the son of the Rick Moranis character, who was actually the kid that was shrunk down. There was a brother and sister and two neighbors that were shrunk down. He's actually the kid that was playing 30 years later, the kid that was shrunk down. So I'm sure we'll get more information on that. More Disney news. I told you, Disney news. Disney is now officially, the deal went through this week, officially in control of Hulu. Comcast finally sold their stake in Hulu. It's not completely done yet, but it's essentially like a 3-year process for Disney to have full control. Interestingly, the deal actually loosens NBC's exclusivity deal with Hulu. So you might be able to see more NBC stuff popping up on other platforms outside of Hulu, which we haven't seen over the past few years. Because of Comcast, which I should back that up a little bit because I don't think about it because I'm so used to it. I literally work there. Comcast owns NBC Universal. That is the parent company of NBC Universal. So when I say Comcast regarding like Hulu and those kind of things, it's really referring to NBC Universal. So Comcast, because they sold, now we're going to be able to see possibly on other platforms. Interestingly enough, we do know that Comcast and NBC are in development on their own streaming platform. Not going to be a Disney Plus, from what the understanding is. It's going to be more of a free ad-based thing for cable subscribers. So it's going to be a little easier. I don't want to say easier, but you're not paying additional fees like you are with a Disney Plus or a Netflix, any of those kind of things. So as of 2022, we should see a full pullback by NBC, probably still licensing their shows to Hulu without the exclusivity deal. And really, I was thinking about it today. I've been thinking about it for a while. I was thinking about it especially today, and I really feel like Disney is just looking to completely kill Hulu at some point. I don't think they're going to kill it right now, but I think eventually they'll kind of phase Hulu into Disney Plus or some kind of other streaming thing. And especially if you're familiar with Disney, they really like to... Everything at Disney is branded under one of 3 kind of umbrellas. And so having Hulu, it doesn't... And granted, we have Lucasfilm, you have Pixar and stuff, but the umbrella they fall under is Disney Studios. And so Hulu will kind of fall under Disney Studios, but they also very much like to brand those things. And with Hulu not being a Lucasfilm or a Pixar, where they're just a household name, where even kids are like, yeah, Pixar. I have a feeling that's going to kind of be folded into everything else. And for those of you that are going to ask me later, it's Walt Disney Studios, Walt Disney Company, ESPN, and ABC. Those are the 3 umbrellas that Disney prefers to kind of keep all of their things underneath. It's to their credit, it is probably a good move. When it comes to branding and marketing, that's kind of the way to go. I can't fault them for that. As much as I make fun of Disney and say they're going to take over the world, which they are, they're working on it right now. They're just buying up everything possible. They do know what they're doing. The mouse knows what he's doing. But speaking of Disney, again, we're getting news of more layoffs from the Walt Disney Company, specifically from Disney Studios. Layoffs pertaining to Disney Studios, and this is, of course, related to the Fox deal. We knew this was coming. Fox, a lot of people were laid off at Fox kind of right after the deal happened, and I believe they're still going through a lot of that. But now we're seeing layoffs from the Disney side, which we knew was coming. Disney is relentless, and unfortunately people are losing their jobs, and it's always unfortunate to see these kind of layoffs. I mean, I've literally been there myself. They had to fold my entire division at the Walt Disney Company when I was working under Disney Channel with Radio Disney. They had to fold the entire thing, and I've been there. I've been there. It sucks. It really didn't suck that bad. I gotta be honest. I was there for 8 years. I was like, cool, give me all that money. I'll take my vesting. Oh, no. My retirement stays right there, y'all. I was not that upset. But it is upsetting for a lot of people. I don't mean to laugh, because it is. I only laugh because a lot of people ask me, and they're like, oh, it sucks. And I was like, nah, it's all good. And my coworker that left, I had basically a partner. Oh my gosh, there's a word I'm looking for, counterpart at Disney, and she left like 8 months before the layoff. She called me that day. She's like, God damn it, why couldn't I just wait it out another 8 months? So that's why I laugh. People losing their jobs is not funny at all. But fortunately and unfortunately, a lot of people that are working in studios and stuff, which Chris can attest to, you're kind of used to moving from job to job. Stuff gets canceled, stuff, goes into development hell and nothing happens. That's just the nature of the game. Oh, Game of Thrones. Man. Whoever's on the live feed right now, I want to know what you thought of the most... Without giving spoilers. Don't give any spoilers just in case somebody is watching now or comes back and watches this on Facebook. So don't give any spoilers. Just let me know what you thought of the most recent episode. I'm bringing this up, and again, I'm not going to give out spoilers just in case you haven't seen it. Although it's got to be tough to avoid spoilers because it's just been all over the place. Game is like all over the place. There is a petition going around right now. And a bunch of fans started the petition demanding that HBO, I'm with you, Chris, demanding that HBO reshoot the final season. They want them to reshoot the entire final season. We're one episode away from the end of the series, and this petition, which is, at the time I was looking earlier, they were close to 500,000. They might be over 500,000 by now. 500,000 people have signed this in order to try and get HBO to reshoot the entire season, saying that just it was done terribly, and Benioff and Weiss are idiots, and all this other stuff. It's crazy. So, without giving spoilers, I'm gonna say seriously, get over it, because that's the thing. This isn't choose your own adventure. You don't get to just pick what you want to happen in a show just because you like it, and just because you got attached to somebody doesn't mean you can be upset when something happens that you don't like. And especially when it comes to Game of Thrones. Look at what Game of Thrones has done for 8 seasons. 8 seasons! You can't be shocked when Game of Thrones does things. It might be more shocking because they kind of moved away from doing those shocking things. And then, again, I'm not going to give spoilers. I will say one thing out there. I've seen a lot of people saying it was a twist. Oh, what a twist! That twist was unjustified. That twist, it was unjustified. And it's like, what twist? Do you know what... So here's the thing, and Chris will back me up on this. You know what a twist is? A twist is something you don't see coming at all. When it comes to films, television shows, books, you don't see anything, you don't see it coming at all. And then they somehow twist it, and you're like, oh no. The thing that everyone's freaking out about from this most recent episode of Game of Thrones, it's not a twist. They've literally been building it up for 8 seasons. Literally been building it up for 8 seasons. What everyone's calling a twist. So get over yourselves. You're spoiled. You can't control how a show works. Just appreciate it. Just appreciate the damn show. And get over yourselves. Frickin' petitions and stuff. Right? I'm with you, Chris. It was coming for a long time. I was waiting for it. I thought it was going to come sooner this season. I really did. I thought like an episode or 2 ago we'd be like... And we kind of did. I mean, it's been teased. This twist that everyone's complaining about. It's not a twist. For the love of God. Alright. I think I did my best with no spoilers on that. Right? I think that was pretty good. If you haven't seen the episode, you probably don't. I mean, you might because it's been all over social media and such. But I will say, I really enjoyed the episode. That's what's funny. Thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was cinematic. I thought the action sequences were fantastic. I felt it was shocking at certain times in a good, good bad way. I'm not giving spoilers, but it's a giant medieval battle. So yes, shocking in the right kind of ways, and rounded out things that really personally, and I think a lot of people did, and kind of plot point wise, rounded out a lot of character arcs, and that's what it is. So get out of here with your fucking petition and stuff, and Jesus. No one's ever happy with shows. That's the thing. No one's ever universally happy with shows. I'll tell you, I remember, and I'm not doing the, I never watched it. I'm just, like, I just never got into watching Lost. And it was like, maybe I'll get around to watching it at some point. And this was like, I mean, Lost was kind of pre-Hulu and stuff, like, or maybe Hulu came in the middle. So it wasn't like you could just pull up a show and watch it at that time. You kind of had to watch it or you had to have a DVR. I had neither of those. I remember when Lost ended, and I was working at Disney, and I go into the office, and everyone that was a Lost fan was just like, oh man, and like people were like, that was terrible. I just remember saying to a bunch of people, I was like, well, I'm actually kind of glad I didn't watch it now if it was really that bad. But I also have a feeling if I had watched it, maybe in the moment I would have been a little upset, but if I went back and watched it right now, I might just be like, okay, it's fine. I still like Sopranos. See, everyone that watched Sopranos is like, oh man! I still like Sopranos. The way that ended was not the best, but hey. Alright, a couple more TV, film, and books things here. Rick and Morty. I should have told them I was lost. Yes, I'm lost on this, guys. Rick and Morty. We got Rick and Morty fans out there. I know we do, because I'm not. I can't call myself a Rick and Morty fan. I haven't gotten around to watching it, but I know I'm going to be a Rick and Morty fan. We've got confirmation on season 4. It's going to be coming in November. Season 4 begins in November. Oh my gosh, the creators. I'm blanking on names right now. Dan Harmon, and he has his co-creator on that. Dan Harmon was also the creator of Community. If you're not familiar with Dan Harmon. They finally reached a deal with Adult Swim for 70 new episodes. 70 new episodes. So I think we're going beyond season 4. I would hope 70 episodes is a lot for a season. Animated half hour. Well, that doesn't matter. It's a lot for a season. Maybe Rick and Morty are like those 15-minute things. I'm not positive because I haven't actually watched it, but I will get around to watching it. And maybe we'll talk about it a little bit on the podcast. I've always talked about it because people tell me I need to watch it and whatnot. It's just haven't gotten around to it. It's very difficult when you have a toddler at home to sit down and watch shows. And you got to prioritize. Well, I got to watch Thrones, and a couple other shows. One more in the TV, film, and books world here. Oh man, I'm gonna get a sip of my my Sidecar Orange IPA here, and it's just a rest in peace to Tim Conway. Tim Conway. If you're not familiar with Tim Conway, I'll tell you, you are. In some capacity or another, you just don't recognize the name. He was one of the big stars on the Carol Burnett show. Went on to act just in sitcoms all over the place. He was fantastic. Thank you, Chris. Justin Roiland is the other creator of Rick and Morty. And he passed away this week at the age of 85. And I don't have really personal stuff to talk about. I've always been a big fan of his. I will say that he was an absolute brilliant comedic actor. Was always a big fan. Fortunately, he did make it to 85, although I've said it before, these days, like 85, I don't want to call it young, but, I'm not going to say, like, okay, they until they're in their, like, 90s. We've reached that point. So rest in peace, Tim Conway. Thank you for the laughs. Thank you for being you, really, and sharing your talent with the world. With the world. All right, let's get into some music news. Blink-182 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know, we talk so much freaking Blink-182 on this show. Because they pop up a lot. They've got a new album coming out. They got a tour coming up. That's why we talk about them. And they're from freaking Poway, California. Blink-182 and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They are currently sitting in second in fan voting. This is interesting. I never knew this about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that's kind of why I want to share this. So anyone who visits the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame actually gets to put in a vote for the band that they think should be the next band artist inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And actually, Blink-182 was sitting at number 1, the first position for quite a while there. They were only recently overtaken by Motley Crue. I believe there's a Motley Crue documentary that aired on Netflix, and only recently were they overtaken. So they're currently sitting in the second position. The interesting thing here is they can't actually be inducted this year, even if they were sitting in the first position. As there is a requirement, which I wasn't aware of, with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, that you have to be 25 years removed from your debut album. 25 years removed from your debut album. Now, I believe this is debut studio album, because Blink-182 would not be eligible until 2020. And if you're from San Diego, especially if you're from Poway, you know there's music of theirs floating around as of like 92, 93. Buddha was around, but it wasn't their big first studio album. That was Cheshire Cat, and that came out in February of 1995. So they are not actually eligible until 2020, February of 2020. We'll see. I've been a little bit kind of irritated with Blink, and we're going to tour with Lil Wayne, and marking all of his millennial tweets that he puts out there. I'm like, dude, you're 50. Get off the Twitter. That's enough. Get off the Twitter. But as much as I say that, it would be nice to see a punk rock band get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and I'm sure it's just a matter of time before that actually happens. Speaking of rock and roll, Roger Daltrey. You guys familiar with Roger Daltrey? He is the lead singer of The Who. Lead singer of The Who, band that's been around for a long time. He's been in the news recently because they were playing a show at Madison Square Garden, actually, and in the middle of the show he stopped during the show to yell at some fans that were in the front row in the pit there, who had sparked up some marijuana, some joints, a little bit of pot going on in the pit there. Chided them, said that he's allergic, and needed them to stop, and it would mess with his voice. And apparently, I saw a quote from a music journalist who said it actually did affect his voice to an extent. And then once the smoke had stopped, his voice kind of came back to normal. So I bring this up, and I'm not gonna rant. I'm not gonna defend anybody. I will tell you, I understand from Roger Daltrey's standpoint, like, you're allergic, that sucks. But I just don't understand how this isn't a thing every single time they play a show. I genuinely don't, because here's the thing: even if you don't like marijuana, you don't like pot, you don't want to be around it or anything, live shows and marijuana go together like peanut butter and jelly. I don't think I've ever been to some kid concerts. I saw the Jonas Brothers and Miley Cyrus years ago for work. So I don't think there was a lot of pot smoke going around. But any concert that I've gone to for my own enjoyment, there's pot smoke flying up. Like, I mean, Matt, how much pot smoke was flying around at Back to Beach Festival? Quite a bit. They go hand in hand. So I totally get it. I feel for Roger Daltrey. It's just, how does this not come up every freaking concert you play? I don't get it. But hopefully people will get the... It was in the green room a lot. That's right, the green room. There's a reason they call it the green room. Oh, man. I wonder if that is the reason. It might be. I've been in a lot of green rooms myself. I've had to set up green rooms and work on artist writers, but I never really thought about where the term came from. All right, one more thing in music news, and I'm only bringing this up because I want to share it with all of you, and maybe you can join me. Unwritten Law just recently announced a show. They're coming to Southern California. They're freaking from Poway. They're going to be in Southern California in June 21st to be specific, at the Glass House in Pomona. Great venue. I haven't been there in years. I think it's probably even improved. It was a great venue back in the 90s, and I think it's just gotten better and better and better. They're playing at the Glass House with Authority Zero and another band I was not familiar with. June 21st, those tickets go on sale tomorrow. I will absolutely be there. Unwritten Law is possibly my favorite band around. It's kind of a tie between them and Blink and Rancid, and it's hard to choose one of those. I have a certain attachment to each and every one of those bands for specific reasons. Unwritten Law is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. I wish I could say I haven't seen them for 20 years, but I did see them 5 years ago. So that's the band that I do follow much more than all the other bands. So join me at the Glass House, June 21st. I will be out there with my good friend Laura and possibly some other people that want to come and join as well, rocking out to some Unwritten Law. All right, let's get into some mental health. There's a couple things I want to talk about here. In fact, I'm not going to have a lot of time on some of this because we are running out of time. We still got to get into tech, but I'm going to do my absolute best because it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and I want to share a couple of these with you. First one, this one got me like this week because it happens a lot, and it was happening like ridiculously this week. In fact, Burning Man camp had used it insensitively. When it comes to terms, and I've said this before. Obsessive Christmas disorder. That was a fucking thing. Remember that? That was a thing. And I had to explain to people it's not a thing you joke about. Well, it still happens all the time. And granted, most of the time it's ignorance from people not understanding what they're doing. And that's why I want to talk about it. I posted something the other day. I want to talk about it. Obsessive compulsive disorder is not a joke. It's not a joke. Anxiety is not a joke. Anxiety attacks, they are not a joke. These are not terms to use lightly. Being organized does not make you OCD. Just because you like things neat and tidy doesn't mean you're OCD. OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, is not an adjective that should be used for people that are neat and tidy. It's not. And I think the problem here is people don't think of it as a disorder. Don't think of it as what it actually is. You know, I said this before with the Christmas stuff. When people were like, I have obsessive Christmas disorder. And it was like, would you run around saying, I have Christmas cancer? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't. And these terms should fall in that same exact category. Just because you're neat and tidy, you don't have obsessive compulsive disorder. Trust me. You don't want to know what it's like to really truly have obsessive compulsive disorder or obsessive anxiety disorder. These are real things that people have to deal with on a daily basis. And again, I realize it's ignorance from a lot of people. They don't realize that they're doing things that can be disrespectful to those that are dealing with it. But that's why I'm talking about it here. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And maybe you're listening and you know better because you've been listening for years and you know that's an insensitive thing to do. But you probably hear people say it. I think I heard it 10 times over this past weekend, just being around people. And I saw a Burning Man camp posting it, and they're like, we're going to be OCD this year. And it's like, that was literally what it said. They were talking about something, but they were like, we're going to be OCD this year. And it's like, what? That's not how we use these terms. So let's do better. We can educate people on being better. In fact, you remember back in the 80s and 90s? There was a word that begins with F that people used really freely. Or people would be like, that's so gay. And they'd use it in a derogatory way. And we learned. Everyone learned. Like, no, this is not a derogatory thing. Like, no. So we can do better. We can move past this and educate people to realize that it's not something to use lightly. It's not something to joke about. You're not OCD. Trust me. You're not having a panic attack just because you're stressed. A panic attack is a whole nother thing. It's a whole nother thing. When you have to go to the hospital and be hooked up to machines because you can't breathe, then maybe you've had a panic attack. It's not fun. I'll tell you, one of my most memorable, and they've happened to me many times, one of my most memorable, I'm driving back from a gig. I was DJing a school back in my 20s, early 20s. Oh, God, years ago. I'm driving on the 10. There's some school out near Palm Springs or something. I start getting tightness in my chest and shortness of breath. I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? What's going on? I pull off the freeway, and weirdly, instead of calling like a doctor or anything, I call my mother. I'm like, Ma, something's going on. I got tightness in my chest. I don't know what's happening. I feel like I'm having a heart attack, and and still able to talk. So clearly not like terrible, because I've been in panic attacks where I'm just completely hyperventilating and I can't even communicate with people. So I'm still able to talk. But I had tightness in my chest. And you know what my mother said to me? That's why I always think of this story. I was a full-time smoker back then. My mother said to me, you know what, just stay on the side of the road, smoke a cigarette, and try to catch your breath. And sure enough, that helped. And I remember saying to her, what do you mean? I think I'm having a heart attack. My mother knew I wasn't having a heart attack. She knew it was stress and anxiety that were starting to ramp up to a panic attack. And sure enough, I had a cigarette, and I didn't get completely better. In fact, like a year after that was when I had one of my serious breakdowns and just went in completely into a hole, crying every day. And these are things that I've talked about on the pod before. That was one of my real bad ones. And when it comes to OCD, oh man, trust me, you don't want that. Just because you put your dishes away, fold your laundry, no. Maybe I'll set up a camera one night, and you guys can join me on my routine. What it takes for me to go to bed. It's about a half an hour routine. And then sometimes that half an hour doesn't go smoothly. And I gotta add another 10-15 minutes onto that because I gotta redo a bunch of stuff. Yeah, that's what it's like. That's why sometimes it takes me more than 5 minutes to get in the studio. I actually go hit the bathroom about 5 times over a matter of 7 minutes right before I come in the studio. That's my compulsion. Not even doing anything in there. It's my compulsion. I lock the door about 10 times a night. I really only lock it once. But that's what it's like to have obsessive compulsive disorder. And I'm not even really getting into what it's like to have a real panic attack. Because I can't do that right now, because if I start talking about it, there's always a chance I go into one. So be sensitive. Be sensitive to those things. And for those of you out there that do experience those things, we have another example of someone sharing their own thoughts, their own feelings on this. And it happens to be Maisie Williams. Maisie Williams, she plays Arya Stark on Game of Thrones. Actually opened up a bit about her struggles with mental health and mental illness. And talked about how she had self-hatred for years. Just woke up every day hating herself. And I can completely relate to this. I think anyone out there with a serious mental illness can relate to this. Sometimes you just hate yourself. I've been hating myself for about a week and a half now. It's been a little rough for me personally. I've been dealing with some family stuff, some health problems with some family members and everything else, and it's been ridiculous. And that turns into self-hatred. And in addition to self-hatred, and the racing thoughts is another thing that she talked about, where you kind of go through just thoughts racing through your head. And specifically, she talked about one that I've talked about on the show before, and it's when interacting with friends and stuff, and constantly rehashing conversations in her head and thinking that she has said terrible, terrible things. So good on you, Maisie Williams. Thank you for sharing these things, because as much as I can talk about them on the podcast and be open about these things, I have nowhere near the clout that a Maisie Williams does. Or I am blanking on her name, the actress that plays Sansa Stark, who has also been open with her struggles with mental health. So thank you, Maisie Williams, for sharing these things. And again, hopefully kids are going to see this, teenagers are going to see this, and have something to relate to, and realize that they are not the only ones. Additionally, she did make a mention of social media and how that can be negative. Trust me, I completely understand that too. And as a star, as like a big television star, big star, a star of one of the biggest shows around, that's got to be extra rough. Got to be extra rough. Okay, so I'm actually going to put this. I'm going to talk about this next episode, and it's talking to kids about mental health. But I'm going to leave you on with this one, just this tidbit from it that we will get into on the next show is based on some research I'd done. More than 1 in 5 teens has a mental health disorder that can affect their daily lives. More than 1 in 5. So we're talking not quite 2, but it's more than 1. Thank you, Chris. Sophie Turner. Sophie Turner. I don't know why I was blanking on her name. Good on her also for sharing her struggles. And putting James Woods in his place. Oh, I love anyone that puts James Woods in his place. Oh, geez. Good on you. Oh, you know what? I'm going to save that. Forgot to talk about that. I don't know how we've gotten past that. So we're going to talk about talking to your kids about mental health and mental illness. But I will just leave you with that one factoid. More than 1 in 5 teens has a mental health disorder. And we'll get more in depth on that in the next episode, because I think this is important. It's just we're running out of time, and I want to get through some of this tech and everything else. I don't really have anything parenting this week, but I will tell you, I mentioned at the top of the show, most likely no full episode next week. So my wife is actually leaving for China on Saturday. She will be heading to China on Saturday for about a week. So it's going to be me and my 2-year-old, just the two of us, for a week. Now, because of that, it's tough to get in the studio and record an entire episode. It's not as difficult to shoot some interstitials and kind of get that important stuff out there. So what we're going to do is next week, because like I said, most likely no episode, no guarantee yet. We could kind of finagle things and see if I can get an episode in next Thursday. Most likely no episode, but look forward to a lot of parenting interstitials coming your way next week if there isn't an episode. And I'm going to be shooting. We have some new beer reviews to go up. They're already in the can, and I've actually got, oh my gosh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've got 7 beers sitting over here, unopened beers. Oh yeah, once in a while, unopened beers here. That are going to be all used for beer reviews. Yeah, we're going to be doing some dad fiction here soon, Matt. I've been talking to Ryan. I believe he was on the live feed there for a little while. I was joining them for their live feed last night on YouTube. Dad fiction, I've mentioned them before. They talk quite a bit about parenting. Happens to be 2 friends of mine from high school that do that podcast out of San Diego, AJ Calabrese and Ryan Gonzalez. We're going to be having some crossovers there soon, very soon. We've been talking about it. The problem is they're in San Diego and I'm in Los Angeles, and it's middle of the week, and literally all of us have kids. We've all got kids. Yeah, I will be. That's the thing. Chris is pointing out, after a week alone with my toddler, I will want to try all those beers. Fortunately, I have, they say it takes a village, and I have a few friends that will be coming over to kind of give me a reprieve here and there, at least for a little bit during that week. And I mean, it's going to be fantastic. It's just the good thing about when there's 2 of you in the house and you have a toddler or multiple kids, which I'm sure Chris and Bridget can say the same thing. You're able to kind of take a little break, And yes, the children sleep and everything, but it's still nice to get a little break. My wife comes home, she spends some time with the kid. I go in the studio and do some work. It's nice to get a little break from the kid. And it's the most important thing in my life by far. But it's nice to be able to have a little break and not listen to Frozen for the 18th time that day. Yeah, I'm not even exaggerating with 18. You think I'm exaggerating? Nope. Nope. All right, so look forward to that next week. You know what's funny? I didn't mention at the top of the show, I still got an ear infection. It's been weeks. And it's not like a terribly painful ear infection. It's just I don't have full hearing out of my right ear right now. So my voice is back, but my voice is still a little bit off because I don't have full hearing out of my right ear. I'm pretty good out of my left right now. The right is not doing not at full strength, not at 100% here. All right, let's move through some tech stuff here. We are running short on time, so I'm going to try to get through as much of this as possible. Some news from Facebook. Facebook has updated their Facebook Live policies. This is following the live stream of the New Zealand shooting, the Christchurch shooting that happened where the shooter live streamed a bunch of stuff. They have a new one-strike policy, and if you get one strike against you, you're going to be restricted on Facebook Live, most likely a minimum of a 30-day ban. There will, however, be permanent bans for people that do things like the New Zealand shooter. However, I will say this one thing. It's cool, Facebook, but just make sure you're doing more. Do as much as you can. We still see Alex Jones popping up on your platform. Do better. And don't come out with these little policies and thinking you're doing... Like, actions speak louder than words, Facebook. Action. Do it. Google. Good on you, Google and Apple. Apparently today is... Oh my gosh, I don't want to say it wrong. It is... Accessibility Awareness Day. And so Apple and Google are celebrating that with some new apps that encourage accessibility. So a lot of these apps are going to work with voice commands as opposed to having to type things. So if you're interested in that, something you might need, definitely check that out. And good on you, Apple and Google, for putting these things at the forefront. We're seeing this a lot more from tech companies. We're seeing it with Microsoft with their adaptable controller as well as their Braille display controller, and we're seeing more and more of this from like the Googles and the Apples of the world. So that's fantastic because everyone should be able to access these terrible social media sites that we look at on a daily basis. And if you need accessible apps to do that, then that's great that we have companies doing exactly what is needed. TikTok. You guys familiar with TikTok? I am not. TikTok is number 1 on iOS right now, and it's the 5th quarter in a row. So essentially 1 year plus 3 months, so like 15 months, they have been the number one iOS app being downloaded by people that have Apple iPhones, iPod Touches, or are those even still around, iPads and stuff. And that's TikTok. I still don't know exactly what it is, but apparently it's the number 1 app on iOS right now. Is it a live thing? Maybe we should go live on TikTok. I feel like it's like a Vine thing. That's what always happens in the tech world. Like, someone comes out with this thing and it's like so great for a few months, and then they're like, nah, it sucks now. And then a few months later, they're like, here's the same thing under a different name. And everyone's like, cool. And then that one lasts like 5 years. I really don't understand tech. I don't know why I talk about it. Some more news from Facebook. They're making algorithm changes. More algorithm changes from Facebook. This new algorithm change is going to promote close friend content. I don't even know what the fuck that means. But here's the thing, Facebook. Stop changing your algorithm. Stop it. Just stop changing things. Just give us the fucking chronological that we've been asking for since the beginning of Facebook. Well, since the beginning of these stupid algorithms. Chronological. It's not hard. You don't need an algorithm. I mean, technically it's an algorithm, but the algorithm just reads times and dates. And it's all chronological. It's beautiful. Oh, that's why Twitter is actually kind of beautiful, because it's chronological. Facebook doing more polishing of their turd here. I just don't get it. Don't get it. Speaking of social media, if you're interested, the White House currently has a survey that you can find. I don't know. Do you go to White House? Oh God, it is. It's whitehouse.gov. I was about to make a joke. This is the world we live in now. Like the Onion, you have to be like, is that a joke? I was about to be like, oh, whitehouse.com. Well, I was wrong. Whitehouse.gov. Where you can get this survey. Oh God. Sometimes I amuse even myself. This survey that you can go on there because the White House is trying to fight incorrect bans from social platforms. And what was it you said earlier, Matt? Wah, wah, wah. That's all I gotta say to you. Wah. Get over yourselves. And find something better to do. Find something better to do. Like, our country's running so well right now, right? So we're gonna worry about social platforms. Get the hell out of here. Orange menace and your ridiculousness. And speaking of the White House and tech, that's what's funny here. The White House is like, we need free speech on social platforms. But then you know what else they do? So there's a thing called the Christchurch Call. And this was headlined by New Zealand and France. And the majority of developed countries in the world signed on to this. And it's essentially, it's condemning and blocking extremist content. Condemning and blocking extremist content. For those of you out there, terrorist content, if that makes it easier to digest. Extremist content. Well, what happened was the White House didn't want to sign on to this. They didn't want to sign on to this. Why? 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 Why, Wall fans? Why, Common Sensors? Because they love the extremist content. That's their followers. They love the white supremacists. They actually, I'm telling you right now, they love these mass shooters. Because they can blame it on minorities, and then all their followers eat it up, when in fact it's again, some white dude shooting people. And that's why they're not going to sign on to this. This is the world we live in. What do they call it in what is it called in Handmaid's Tale? Chris hit me with that. What are they, Gilead or something? I stopped watching Handmaid's Tale. I loved the first season. I thought it was fantastic. I had to stop watching a couple episodes into the next season because it was a little too scary for me. It has become too real and too scary. Too real and too scary. And what's happening in Alabama and Georgia right now is just more examples of that. All right, I want to just kind of cruise through these last couple of things in common sense. FanDuel, if you're not familiar with this, yes, thank you, Chris. Gilead is the name of the country in Handmaid's Tale. It's supposed to be in the United States of America, and they call it Gilead. Fucking Bible thumpers. FanDuel, if you're not familiar with that, that is a website that you can go on and legally gamble on sporting events. Well, we got a story out of FanDuel that they are returning money based on the hockey game in the Western Conference Finals because there was a blown call at the very end in overtime. And if you're not familiar with hockey, once a goal is scored in overtime, that's the end of the game. It's sudden death on the goals in overtime. It was a bad call, and FanDuel is returning money that they had collected from gamblers who bet on the St. Louis Blues, who ended up losing the game because of a blown call against the San Jose Sharks. This is super interesting, and I know a lot of you don't have much interest in this, but the reason I find this super interesting, not only because I'm a sports fan, but it's just the precedent that could possibly be set here. The precedent. Because remember, in the NFL, even if you're not a big sports fan, you probably remember the New Orleans Saints complaining that they got robbed on a call and should have won the game. And arguably, they do have an argument there, however the game ended. So if we see a big site like FanDuel doing this is such a precedent that has been set. Such a precedent. And you're going to have people arguing, well, that was a bad call and that team shouldn't have won. So while I see what they're doing here, because it was an egregious call in this hockey game, you're setting yourself up. You're setting yourself up, FanDuel, so just be careful what you're doing. Oh, man. More prank videos on YouTube. I will say, make sure you're not following this channel. Oh my gosh. Lauren Love. She pretended to be the Walmart CEO and went around to Walmart, I believe it was in Texas, and started firing people. Not only firing people, but she tried to fire a 67-year-old Filipino woman who actually burst into tears. And she went around pranking people, firing them, fake firing them at Walmart, and thought it was hilarious. Putting people in tears. Just like we talked about with the Disney layoffs. The people's livelihoods and jobs. Tears. And of course she comes out and apologizes. But the important takeaway here is, YouTube, you said you were going to ban prank videos. You said there were no longer going to be prank videos on your platform. We had Cole and Sav doing the stupid prank video with the dog and their daughter, which is just disgusting. That's even more disgusting than this. But here's another prank video that made its way onto your site and was probably flagged, and you guys didn't remove it. It has since been removed, but it's actually floating all around YouTube from what I understand because other people have uploaded it to their own channels. So watch out for this YouTuber, Lauren. I hate that fucking term, YouTuber. What do you do for a living? I'm a YouTuber. Sounds like you're a plumber or something. Oh, Ted Cruz, he's a huge baby. He's complaining to Twitter because everyone else's tweets insulting him are being pushed to the forefront, and his tweets explaining himself are not. So, again, wah. Wah, Ted Cruz, you big baby. One more thing I'm going to leave you with here. Apparently, Taco Bell is going to be opening a hotel in Palm Springs this summer. Because, yes, the first thing I look for when I am looking at hotels is the one that will give me the most diarrhea possible. So, yeah, Taco Bell Hotel in Palm Springs. No thanks. It's really Taco Bell? Like make a Pizza Hut even better. Same company. Kentucky Fried Chicken, for God's sake. Same company. It's all Yum brands. Oh, boy. I feel like I'm still a little bit fired up because Boston Bruins are going to the Stanley Cup Finals. Chris, I know you're excited. I'm excited. Awaiting the opponent on that. I'll say right now, if it's San Jose, Chris, if it's San Jose, are we doing a road trip? If it's San Jose. Because here's the thing, Chris, I have a free place for us to stay, close enough to San Jose for us to go hit a game. We'll talk about it. All right, Wall fans, common sensors. We are over time right now. Don't forget, most likely no episode next week, but make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. Head on over to YouTube and search Go Tell It to the Wall, subscribe, because if there isn't a full episode next week, all kinds of interstitial stuff is going up on there. Additionally, if you want to stay in touch, make sure you head over to Twitter. Follow our official Go Tell It to the Wall account, which is @TellTheWallPod. Additionally, you can follow my personal Twitter account, which is @MagicMuppet. And of course, Facebook, where we are currently live right now. As much trash as I talk about Facebook's policies, because they are pretty terrible a lot of times in their algorithms, head on over there, facebook.com/GoTellItToTheWall. Like our page, check back often, do all the things that you do on Facebook. And of course, most importantly of all those things, and I say that because you can literally link to everything I just mentioned, would be SeanO'RourkeLive.com. That's right, SeanO'RourkeLive.com. Bookmark it, check back often. That's where you're going to find our blogs, photos, all that good stuff. You're literally going to find photos of our on-air producer, Chris Hassong, and our other on-air producer, Bridget Hassong, on SeanO'RourkeLive.com. So if you've ever been curious what they look like, that would be a good place to see them. That's right. All right, Wall fans, common sensors, podcast consumers, social media world. This has been episode 97. 97. We're so close to that episode 100. It's going to be out of hand when we do get to episode 100. Episode 97 of Go Tell It to the Wall podcast. I am, of course, your favorite podcast host, the one and only Sean O'Rourke. And remember, Wall fans, no matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter who you're with, and no matter why you are doing it, always use common sense. Couldn't find my cursor there for a few minutes. Thanks, everyone, for joining. We actually had a pretty good crowd on there for a little while. I know people kind of come in and out. Thank you, as always, Chris. I know Bridget was in there, but I had a lot more, jobs for Chris tonight. Because it's a very, geeky episode. And that's where I need Chris the most, because I don't have the knowledge. And, I mean, I use geeky not in an insulting way, like movie geek, comic geek, sports geek. Chris kind of has a lot more of that knowledge off the top of his head than I do. Plus, when I'm preparing to go into the studio, I cram all this stuff into my head, and then it starts coming out, but there's no room for any of the other stuff. So thank you, as always, Chris. Thank you, Matt, for joining. It's always a pleasure when you join. And to everyone else, thank you. Oh, see, Chris, I'm just saying, we had a lot of geekier comic book, stuff today. I know, Bridget is usually the common sense. That's what I always say. I say, when we're going off the rails, Bridget is the one, trying to pull us back on the rails, and Chris is the one, over there chanting, off the rails, off the rails. They, both of you, very much important to everything that we do at Go Tell It to the Wall. And, of course, Ryan's off now, but check out Dad Fiction Podcast. We will have some kind of crossover action happening soon. And as I mentioned, episode 100, we are 3 episodes away. Really? Yeah. Two more episodes to get in the can now. And we will be hitting episode 100, which is going to be out of hand. It's probably just going to be a gigantic party. I don't even know if we can fit it in the studio. And we're going to have some fun with it. So look forward to that. And of course, most importantly right now, go Bruins. We'll talk about maybe going to San Jose, Chris, if we can make that happen. Although that's the thing. Oh, I mean, the Red Sox played in the World Series here, and it's I kind of half looked at it. I was like, oh, it's Can't afford those tickets. So we'll see if that actually happens. But I will be cheering for them nonetheless. So thank you all for joining. Remember, probably no full episode next week, but stay in touch on YouTube and the social platforms. And remember, Wall fans, common sensors, social media world, if you've got complaints, go tell them to a wall. I'm with you, Chris. Too expensive.